Shalom lekulam. Hello everybody. Akiva here. Hope you're doing great and that this week was an amazing week for you. Here we are, Parshat Beshalach, another amazing Torah portion, a very special Torah portion. So many things, I know I say this every week, but there's so many things happening in this week's Torah portion. It's so difficult to choose what to talk about. Probably this week's Parsha more than most, if not all. There's so many things, so many big things happening. We're having the splitting of the sea. The Jews have just left Egypt. The splitting of the sea. You have the giving of the manna, the heavenly bread, right, that the Jews ate for 40 years in the wilderness. We have Miriam and the women coming out and dancing after the splitting of the sea. We have Amalek, the wars of Amalek beginning at the end of this week's Parsha. There's so many things happening. Right, and it's a very special Shabbat. Right, the Shabbat is called Shabbat Shirah. Right, it's the only Shabbat for the entire year that's named after, basically, the Torah portion itself. Not after a holiday that's coming up or after Haftarah. The Torah portion itself. Right, Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbos of song. Right, because of the great song that Bnei Yisrael, the Israeli nation, sang after they were saved by the sea, after the splitting of the sea, after they got to the other side, and the Egyptians drowned in the middle, and they sang this unbelievable song. That's a whole other teaching in and of itself. I'm not going to get into right now, but just to know that this is a very special Shabbat Shirah, a very, very conducive Shabbat to sing a lot. The one thing I want to focus on is actually something that happened very quickly. We don't get many details about it. It just happens in a few lines after the splitting of the sea. Shortly after we learn about the splitting of the sea, we learn that Bnei Yisrael, they travel for 3 days and they have no water. Right? We know that human beings can't live without water. It's a very essential thing, obviously, and rightfully so. They start complaining to Moshe, like, where's the water, where's the water? Well, they finally arrive at a place called Marah, which means bitterness, and they find water, but the waters were bitter, hence the name. Right? And the waters were bitter. They're 3 days looking for water, wanting water, thirsting for water, and they finally get to water, and they can't even drink it. Right, so what happened? Something very strange and unusual, and again, not much detail, but Hashem, God, shows to Moshe a tree, right? And he takes that tree and he throws it into the water, and all of a sudden the waters become sweet, and the Jews can drink the water, and they go on their journey. Now it's very cool, right, that there's a mention of trees in this week's Torah portion, because as most of us know, as most of you know, this Shabbat also happens to be Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat always falls around this time of the year, most of the time in this Torah portion specifically. And we know that Tu B'Shvat is a New Year celebration of the trees. That in and of itself, again, an amazing holiday, an amazing source of great teachings. But we're learning right now that in nature, at least here in the land of Israel, right, that the trees are going through the transformation, they're going through a change. Even if you can't tell from the outside, and some trees you already can, but there's something happening on the inside. There's an eternal transformation happening. The sap is rising in the tree, which will bring life soon to the outside of the tree. So the inner is starting to, bubble, is starting to percolate, right, which will later affect the outer. Right? And that's Tu B'Shvat in a nutshell. Right? In America right now, it might be snowy, icy, cold. Tu B'Shvat celebration of the trees going through this, kind of transformation might not make much sense, but here in the land of Israel, it's totally connected to what's happening right now. So how do we connect these two things, right? Celebration of the trees, the Shabbat, right? And in this week's Torah portion, we have like this obscure little passage, talking about a tree sweetening the water. So I had a thought I want to share with you, and it goes like this. We learn again 3 days of walking. They find the water. They can't drink it. It's too bitter. They throw in the tree. It sweetens it. Tree, 3 days. Where else do we see a connection between 3 days and a tree? Well, the very first mention of trees in the entire Torah is back in the first Torah portion in Bereshit, in Genesis, where trees are created. When are they created? When at least does the creation of trees first get spoken about? Day 3, the third day, right? And in there, where the tree is mentioned, it's very, very interesting, because the tree is described that will be created as a tree that will make fruit. Not just a fruit tree, but a fruit tree that makes fruit, right? And the different Torah commentators, teach on this kind of double language of the word fruit in connection with the tree, is that not only will the fruits taste like fruits, obviously, of the tree, but the tree itself will taste like fruit. Right? Even the bark, even the big trunk of the tree will also have the same taste as the fruit that it produces. Now, what happens? A few days later, when the trees actually do get created, so they only make fruit. They're not fruit trees that make fruit. They're basically fruit trees like we know today. And something cosmically went wrong. They didn't fulfill their intended initial purpose. How, why, a whole nother thing. But just for now, it's good enough to know that that's what happened. Right? That, again, the original intention for the tree is that all parts of the tree would taste like the fruit, but the end creation is that the trees decide themselves, so to speak, only to basically allow their fruits to taste like the fruit. So what's going on with that? How can we connect that back to this week's Torah portion and Tu B'Shvat? I think we can do it like this. I believe that there's an inner-outer teaching happening here, right? And the original intent of the creation of the tree is that the inner and the outer, the bark, the outer, the fruit, which I think represents this inner aspect of the tree, right? Or we can even do the opposite. The tree, which the fruit, is like really this, like look at me, this very outer experience of the tree, right? Where the trunk, the bark, what's going on inside the bark is this inner experience. And we understand them as two very different experiences, two different realities, polar realities even. But the original intention was that they were supposed to be like one, right? And maybe this is a lesson that Bnei Yisrael is being taught by God after they crossed the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, right? How so? There's an idea, right? We learn that Torah is likened to water, and Torah is also likened to trees, right? Torah is compared to water because water, just like water comes from up on high to a lower elevation, right? It flows down with gravity. So too, Torah comes from a place up on high to this world down below, right? And Torah is also likened to a tree, Eitz HaChaim, right? The tree of life. Those who grab onto it will fill themselves with the spiritual blessings and the spiritual wellsprings and the spiritual teachings of the Torah, right? But there's an inner and there's an outer aspect of the Torah. Right? There's the outer, which is the different laws and the different do's and the different don'ts and this and that. And it could look very kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say unattractive, but it just looks like a whole long list of like what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. What do I get out of it? Right? Without the inner aspect of the Torah, of these spiritual teachings, what we're doing, we don't understand. They might not make sense to us, right? And we don't get the full experience of the Torah, right? There's a mashal, there's a little parable that I learned this past week, a week and a half ago, that said that a person went to a doctor very, very sick, right? And the doctor is like, okay, I'm checking you out. I see what's going on with you. We got to take care of you. Here's your medicine. Take it 3 times a day. See me in a week. The guy takes the medicine 3 times a day. He sees a doctor in a week, and he comes back. He is like even worse. He's like coughing like crazy. He can barely walk into the doctor's office. And the doctor says, no, like, did you take the medicine? Did you take it 3 times a day, every day? He said, yeah, I did exactly what you told me. He's like, but how did you take the medicine? He's like, well, I took the medicine. I smeared it all over my body. And the doctor's like, no, you're supposed to put it inside your body. Right? You're supposed to put it on the inside, not just on the outside. Right? And then the Mishal, the lesson learned from this parable is that the Torah, spiritual teachings in life, right, are not just for the outside. It's not just like a list of do's and don'ts, actions, things like that. It's supposed to go inside deep. Right? It's supposed to transform us. Right? So just like the trees right now with Tu B'Shvat are going through this inner transformation, which will later be expressed on the outer, right? And the two will join as one. Right? Just like the tree that's being thrown into the water in this week's Torah portion. Right? 2 aspects of Torah. Right? Tree and water, maybe inner and outer, coming together as one to bring out the sweetness of the Torah. Just like in the beginning of creation, right? The outer and the inner aspect of the tree is supposed to taste one and the same, the sweet fruit, right? It's a lesson for our lives, right? We're not just supposed to live on this external level of reality. We need the inner as well, right? To fully understand what we can understand in this world, to fully understand ourselves, and to have a complete experience of living, of life, right? Not just like this hard shell on the outside, okay, I'll get by as best as I can, but no, the sweetness, the water, the juice, right? That only exists inside. Right, the inner and the outer together. I bless all of us, right, that we should merit to see the beauty, right, of both aspects of reality of our lives and be able to do the work, right, because it does take work, right, to do the work to join them together as one, right, and to bring completeness to our lives, to the entire world, right, and bring blessing and peace to all of creation. Lots of love from the land of Israel. Shabbat Shalom.